So coming to this data set, we are now going to try and answer a few questions on this and look at some functions. So firstly, this data set, it has about 11 columns. Okay, and sorry, it has 17 columns. You can see the count here, which says there are 17 columns. This particular data set, as you can see, it has 17 columns. So if I just drag all the way to the end, you can see the count 17. Likewise, there is data on about 2000 students. Once again, I can look and count here and it says 2000. And among these 17 columns, the first one is ID, then you have the name of the student, then you have the email, gender, part-time job, that is whether the student is working, then absence days, how many days they've taken a leave, then there is something that says extracurricular, and if I see this formula bar, I can see that it is supposed to say extracurricular activities, but Google Sheets automatically cuts down to make it visible for us. However, we can, once we move our mouse pointer here, we can either drag it to see the whole thing, or another way is to simply double click it, and that time it fits the screen. The next one also says weekly self-study hours, and if I double click it, it shows it exactly. So extracurricular activities is whether a student participates in those, then weekly self-study, how much does the student study, career aspiration, what the student wants to be, and then this course the student has taken across these many subjects, which is about 7 subjects. With this, we'll first try out some functions. So the first function we'll try is average. So maybe let's try the average for math score. So I'll go to the bottommost cell. So for that, I'm going to press Control and the down arrow key. So now I'm at the bottommost cell. You can see that the row number is 2000. And I'll click on this blank cell. Once I double click, I can now type something. So every formula begins with the equal to symbol. I'm going to click on equal to, and it already has some suggestions for me. And the first one actually happens to be average. This is because these softwares, in some sense, are intelligent enough to know what are the most commonly done tasks, and it automatically suggests those to us. However, let's manually type it out. So average, and you can see again there are more suggestions on top as well. So average, and then I click on bracket, and now I have to provide the range. So if you recollect, so this range we saw was can be given in the format of the first cell. So it will be K2 in this case, then a colon, and finally the last cell is K2001. And you can also see it highlighted in this yellowish sort of rectangular dotted box. You can see the first cell K2 all the way until K2001 is highlighted for us. And now if I click on enter, the value 83.452 is seen. So this is the function average. Likewise, let us look at perhaps a few more of them, such as the mean, median, mode. Of course, average is the mean. And one problem that we see here is I've calculated this, but now I don't know which column it was. So for that, I have to go back up, and okay, I see that it is math score. So for that, what we can do is there is an option called as freeze pane. So freeze pane is going to fix a column on top that is visible for us always. And here you see that it has multiple options. So firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on freeze up to one row, or perhaps one row. So now whenever I scroll down, or when I even use the control arrow keys and go down, you can see that the first row stays as it is. So this is very useful from a visual point of view, that my column names are always visible wherever I go in the sheet. So next, for history score, let us calculate the median. So I'm going to go to the first empty cell in that column, click on median, and once again it's automatically suggesting the range for us. So this time I'll use this suggestion. So, and it can be done by pressing the tab button. So once I click it, you can see the formula, it shows equal to median L2 to L2001, and the actual value 82 is shown here. So whenever you're writing some text, it will be shown as it is, but if you've used a formula, the formula bar will show that instead. We've done median, let's also do mode. So this is the most commonly occurring value. So now this time it's not suggesting for us, but let us enter the range. So I'm going to give M2 to M2001. So once again it is highlighted, and I'm going to press enter, and it tells me 96 is the mode of that particular column. So with this, let us try out a few more functions. So first, let's create a new column. Let us call it average science marks. Now what I want to do in this particular one is I want to find the average score for each student in just the subjects math, physics, chemistry, and biology. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on equal to average math, and then I'm going to press comma. So as you can see, it automatically suggests us what are the things you need to give for the formula. So once I type out average, it says value 1, so then a comma, and then value 2. So now I want physics, then again a comma, chemistry, and then biology. So I've selected the 4 values that I want. I'll click on enter, and now you see that it says autofill. So what this is going to do is, now I'm going to click on no. I'm going to reject this suggestion, but that is what we'll be doing though. So if you look at this formula, and if I go to the formula bar, it highlights these 4 cells that I've chosen. So math, physics, chemistry, and biology, and has taken the average of just those 4 subjects. So that autofill had suggested that I'm going to apply it to all the rows. Now that is one way to do it, and in case the suggestion, you have to verify that the suggestion given is correct. So the other ways to implement that autofill is to come to this, select this particular cell, and in this dot, when you move your mouse, it changes to a plus icon. So now I can simply drag it down, and you can see it is automatically filling the values for me. So if I click on this 94, you can see that it is the average of these 4 cells, which is exactly what we wanted to do. But this particular data set has 2001 entries, and while dragging this plus mark down is definitely easier than manually having to type out the formula. Another thing we can do is, once it comes to this plus mark, we can simply double click our mouse. Now you can see it automatically fills all the way until the end for the valid entries. So this way, this one, if you verify, so average of these 4 entries have been calculated. And perhaps I want to see who the students are as well, whose average marks I've calculated. So once again, I'm going to freeze the first 2 rows, maybe until this name. So I can go to view, freeze, and I'm going to click up to column B. So now you can see that even if I go to the side, the names of the students remain as is. So we've done average science marks, and the next thing I would want to calculate is the average, say, arts marks. We have the subjects history and English and geography. We'll club them into average arts perhaps. So this time I'm going to use equal to average history, and then comma the English cell, comma geography. So again, it's asking for autofill, and this time I'm going to agree to it. But you have to verify the formula, and you can see yes, it is correct for this entry user ID 3, which happens to be in cells L4, P4, and Q4. So that is used for the average. So now that I found the average, so I'm going to add a few more columns to the side. Let's just add 4 or 5 columns. So I'm going to select about 5 columns, right click, and insert 5 columns right. So now I have some new columns to work with. So the first thing I want to do is, for each student, I want to check if they've done higher in science or in the art section. And if they've done better in science, then I want to put S here, the letter S. And if they've done better in arts, then I would like to put A. So what we can do for that is, and like I said, there are 2001 entries, so it's not possible to manually enter for all of them. So we are going to make use of a function called as if. So if I go to equal to if, so it first tells me that I need to provide a logical expression. So what I'm going to do for that is, I'm going to check if the science marks is lesser than the arts marks. So R2 is the science marks. This is the lesser than symbol. If it is lesser than the art mark, then I'm going to give a comma. And now what should we do if this is true? If science is lesser than arts, then I would like to put the letter A. So I've put A in quotes, which is necessary. And then if it is false, I would like to put S here. This way, now I have a formula that automatically tells me if the student has done better on an average in arts or in science. So I'm going to again use the autofill, and you can see the formula again as implemented for each particular row perfectly. So this way I know how many students have done better in arts and who are those who have done better in the science subjects. And maybe I want to even get a count of this. So for that, in case, here you have to be careful that when it does the autofill, it even did for this 2002. That is the last cell, which is not really of a student, but is the value that we calculated as the average. So this way, sometimes the autofill can extend beyond the data set. So you need to be careful and manually delete those parts or give the range appropriate. So now we want to count probably how many S and A's are there, but for that let's perhaps use a different column. So we have this career aspirations column. Maybe I want to know how many of them want to become, say, lawyers. So I'm going to go to the last cell, and this time we are going to use count if function. So count is to get the count, and if is automatic is to give a particular condition. So once again, it is smart enough and telling me what formula I might prefer. So let's not go with lawyer. So I'll change it to doctor. So count if, and then we have to give the range. So the range is J2, the first cell, and J2001, the last cell with data in this column. So with this, we have to now give a comma, and then in quotes we have to type what we want. So I'm going to give doctor this time, and it says there are 119 doctors. So this way we can use the counter function. Similarly, you can try it out in this particular one. Use the counter function and see how many of them have got done better in science than in arts. So that was the counter function. Next question that we are going to have a look at is, say we want to calculate the range for each student. So that is the difference of their highest marks and their lowest marks. So every formula begins with an equal to symbol. So I'm going to go to equal to, and then I want the max value first. So the max value of these 7 subjects. So from math all the way till geography. And then I'm going to close the bracket. And now I also would like to subtract the minimum value. So I'm going to click on minus and then click on min. And once again, I'm going to select the same values and click on enter. Now it tells me the range for the first row is 34. So let us verify if it is true. The maximum value seems to be 97 in chemistry and 63 in biology, the difference of which happens to be 34. Now I would like to implement this to all the cells, so I'm simply going to double click here. Once again, verify that it has done this calculation correct. So that was the function range. There are a few more nice functions. For example, if you would like to know what are the different career aspirations that a student has mentioned. So I'm going to go to the sheet that we had used previously. I'll just delete what is already there. So I can delete. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on equal to and then unique. And now I have the option of going to a different sheet as well. And I'm going to click on this particular column and then click on enter. So what I've done is, so first I typed the formula unique in a new sheet, and then I went back to the sheet where my data was present. So that should tell you that you can use formulas in different sheets as well. And first part was the address. So this was the data set and then the column. So to select the column, I selected the cell J2 and then I used Control Shift down. So that selected the entire column. And when we check, see, once again, there is a mistake here that it also included 119. So 119 was simply the count that we had obtained. So we have to be careful that we give the correct value. So this time it's just 2001. And once we do that, it automatically disappears. So we have these as the different aspirations the students have mentioned. So that was the unique function. Let us now try out a couple more functions. So for that, I'm going to copy the marks of say math and history. So for that, I'm going to click these two columns, click on Control C. I'll go to this perhaps another new sheet using this plus button and click on the cell and hit Control V. So this gives us the math score and the history score. And maybe we should also have the names of the student and the user ID. So I'm going to insert a couple of columns to the left and go back to this data set. copy the name and the ID. Okay, now that we have this, what I would like to do next is, first I want to find the average. I want to find the average math score. Maybe I'll just add a row on top. So I'm going to say average, perhaps we just do it on the side. The average math score is going to be average, and then this, and the average history score. Okay. So now that we have the average math and history score, I would prefer that they are not so much in decimal. So I'm going to click on this one to decrease it to just the integer. This will only be a representation. The original value itself will be stored. And now for each student, I would like to see what is their difference from this average. I'm going to write something like difference from average for math. Likewise for history. So we're going to click on equal to. First, I want C3 and let's say difference from the average, right? So we'll start with this cell G3, G1 minus C3. So now I click on enter and it has given me the value 10. So let me just drag it down a few. So you can see that here there are some suggestions coming. It is not entirely sure what it wants to give. So if you see, sometimes it shows minus 90, sometimes it shows minus 7. So let's see what the problem is. So it gave me minus 90 and minus 81 this time. So the problem is, for the first one we did G1 minus C3. So the second one, we are actually supposed to still subtract from G1, but it has automatically moved to G2, which is incorrect. So what we require to do in this particular case is we need to lock this cell. So since I'm going to be subtracting, we are having these 2000 entries for students, but we are calculating it from a single value of average. So for that we need to lock this cell, and the way to lock it is with the use of the dollar symbol. So if I put a dollar here, I put a dollar symbol here before G and 1. The alternate way is to use the F4 button on your keyboard. So it also adds these dollars. And now if I were to drag it down, you can see it gives me minus 7, which is 83 minus 90, 83 minus 81 is 2. So this way, if we are going to use one particular cell or a couple of cells as a reference, we have to make sure we lock them. Dragging down to get to repeat the formula not just works, dragging down, but you can also drag it to the side. So if I drag it to the side this time, there is one more problem. So this time you can see that since I have locked the cell G1, it is for history score, it is doing G1 minus D3. So D3 is correct, but rather than G1, I would have preferred H1. So for that, either we can manually change this to H1. Alternatively, this locking system works in a way that depending on dollar, you're either going to lock the column or the row. So in this one, we have locked both the column and the row. And since I would like to be able to switch to column H whenever I want, so I can actually remove this lock. So if I go to this cell, I have now simply written $1. And now if I drag it down, this part remains the same because I'm always calculating with $1. But when I drag it to the right, now it has automatically changed to H$1 because I've allowed it to move columns as necessary. So that is, whenever I move to the right, I've allowed it to move to the right in the terms of columns as well. But the row always remains fixed. So now if I drag it down, you can see that this is appropriately H$1 minus D8, which is this cell. So this is the idea of locking down cells for reference and then doing the calculations. This might be a little tricky to understand at first, but if you try it out enough number of times on your own, I'm sure you'll get comfortable with it. So the general idea is use the dollar symbol or the F4 button to lock down either the column or row as necessary, and then you can drag things around to automatically implement the formula. So I hope this was instructive for you. Maybe let's look at one more question before we end. So this is if we want to say square the values that we have gotten. I simply am going to show that function. So I'm going to square the number, say 3. So for that, we can, one way to do it is to simply take the cell, so equal to E3, H4 here, and then use this sort of hat symbol that is there in your keyboard and give square. So this you can see it gave 9. Alternatively, what I can do is I can use the function POW, which allows me to raise a number to any power. So the base is 3 and the exponent I'm raising it to is say 2 in this case. Once I do that, it gives 9. Now, the beauty of this tool is that I can change numbers and it will automatically change the values. So this is how we are going to change the power. So with this, we have seen many such important functions in this video, from mean, median, mode, using the if function to give specific indicators such as the S or A, counting the unique occurrences, finding what are the unique occurrences, which is what we did in this one. And then we also saw how to calculate range using the min and max function. Then we also saw how we can lock different cells and do our calculations. And finally, also the use of powers. Uh, Quite often, one of the things that we do in these is to make use of the filter function. So I can once select the entire data set, or perhaps just the first row. So I'll select the first row and click on this filter button. So once I do this, this helps me to see the data set on the basis of filters. Like if I want to look at the students who want to become, say, artists, I'm going to click on OK, and I'm going to see if what is the number of people who are, say, males and females. So if I do this, now this shows me only those students, which is, see, the 42 rows of students who are female and aspire to be artists. So this way, this filter is another important sort of tool that is there to uh, cut down on your data and look at just the subset that you're focused on. So this tool comes with many such formulas which you can all go through here. So this button is for the formulae. So this all contains everything. Likewise, it is separated based on logical separations. So I suggest that you have a look at it, experiment with this data set, and that is it for this video. Thank you.